Hello, my friends, and welcome to FISHTORY. I'm Alexander Williamson, and today I want to talk to you about a revelation that kind of came to me over the last few months. And I think it's going to shake up the way I do everything on this channel. Now, I want you to know that if you love nature aquariums, don't worry, they're still going to be represented heavily here on the channel. I'm not tearing every single tank down. However, I realized through a series of life events and just through, I guess, one day, it just kind of struck me, this idea hit me, that I am not enjoying the hobby the way I used to. And part of that's okay. I mean, part of that is when I am keeping fish for an audience, I keep fish differently than when I keep fish for my own satisfaction. For instance, if I'm breeding for profit, I may have it like everything's just packed in for space. Nothing is beautiful looking. There's hardly any plants. And it's all about money and production of fish. Also, on the flip side, if I'm showing you how to run a long-lasting nature aquarium, I may super fortify the substrate on a tank like this one, where we've had it running for 7 years now with the substrate. And you can go back on this channel and watch when I set it up. Between live streams and videos of me talking about aquascaping and setup, you can watch me do that. You can watch me trim and time lapse. You can watch me talking about how you recharge the soil or how you recap something, or if you even need a cap. And as I walk through the fish room in the other room, I realize, you know, a lot of these tanks are starting to look the same. These nature aquariums are kind of coming to a plateau. And if you saw my recent video about the life cycle of a nature aquarium or of a low maintenance aquarium, in the sense that you're not doing a lot of water changes, maybe a few here and there, but as a rule, you're just topping off the evaporation, and you are essentially planning as much as you can to pack all the fertilizers, nutrients, and life into the aquarium, in its inhabitants and in its hardscape and in its substrate in the front end. And then you're hoping to have that last as long as possible. And you kind of take your hands off the experiment, and you're not doing all this gravel vacuuming every week, and you're not doing scraping the glass and things. Instead, you plan out, I don't want to do the gravel vacuuming. Well, I'm going to get Malaysian trumpet snails, and they're going to kind of churn the substrate. And then I'm going to get some sort of, algae eater. And over time, I'm going to get little macroscopic organisms like scuds or black worms or something like that to eat in the substrate, planaria even, that are a pest to a lot of people, shrimp, snails. And over time, that will take care of the substrate. And I've gotten to a place where I did this with so many tanks that I have, that they're really starting to kind of come together and just all resemble each other. And I miss having tanks that are at peak performance. If you watch that last video, I talk about how nature aquariums, yes, you could run them forever by doing just kind of maintenance. Maybe you do some light gravel vacuuming. I'm doing these motions like I'm actually doing it. Maybe you do some light gravel vacuuming, and all of a sudden your thick mulm that's gotten out of control, you kind of bring that down, and only some of it is going to get compressed into layers. But over time, the same thing is happening in all these tanks. So whether it's the over 10-year-old tanks in the other room, or whether it's the 7 to 8-year-old tanks that are as old as kind of this channel has been, you're seeing the substrate, it stratifies, and you can see the lines almost like a book or tree rings, and each one is kind of a chapter of maybe 6 months to a year, and it's just getting higher and higher and higher until there's not enough room for fish. Not to mention, if I'm going filterless, then there's not enough of oxygenation. There's not enough movement of water and flow to actually run the bacteria on all the surface areas. There's not enough flow to keep that bacteria churning and working through the nitrogen cycle. And maybe there's anoxic substrate going on, and that's doing some work, and the plants are drawing from it. But most of these have actually gone over that peak performance, or that peak where I've got like 30 species and there's fish breeding in the tank. And I enjoyed that for 2 or 3 years of the last bit of content, the channel's history. But now I'm at a point where I'm feeling like it's all on the downward slope, or we're kind of coasting, and it's more work to do maintenance, and it's almost the same amount of work maintenance-wise as it would be to just keep a newer tank that's not even a natural style tank. And then I could get a lot of fish breeding in situations that I wanted, that I could control and micromanage more. And there would be plants that I am excited about. And while I am excited still about some of these things, when I was in the hospital, I really had some revelations. And the month at home when I wasn't able to do a lot of the maintenance that I would normally do, I was incredibly thankful that I understood the husbandry of these simpler nature style aquariums. At the same time, I lost some of the ability for a tank to try wild new things, to try plants that maybe are from harder water and softer water and see if we can get them somewhere in between, or keeping Caridina and Neocaridina shrimp in the same tank, or keeping Caridina shrimp at all. You know, these things require very specific parameters, or keeping meat-eating fish, or, you know, carnivorous fish and things like that. We just don't have the bandwidth or the ability for the nitrates, ammonia, for that whole nitrogen cycle to be keeping certain tetras or whatever, piranhas or something. You know, I can't do that with this style of tank. Can keep a lot of nanofish, but now even there, I'm tending to get aquariums that are acidic and they're kind of trending towards almost black water or a lot of algae. And that is what they look like in nature. That is what a lot of nature aquariums and natural scenes out in the wild look like very often for our ornamental species. But I want to keep new things, and I want to show you guys new and exciting things, and the science and the research and the fascinating organisms that are involved therein of these different situations. So let's go take a look and talk about what's next for the channel. And I would love your feedback on any of this. I mean, this is for you guys. This is why I'm recording it. Hopefully we're all learning together. I'm learning a lot from going back and watching old content and realizing, whoa, that was 5 years ago. I can look at this tank and see what was different and how it was functioning, how much work went into its maintenance, what I was doing differently. And I can really look at the lifetime of all this because you guys have given me the gift of a record, because I made this thinking I was making it for you, the viewer, and really it came back to me in a very rewarding way. So now I have this log and I'm learning from my mistakes, my history, my successes, all of that and in between, because of the channel and because you guys were here and wanting to learn and asking questions. And I set up various models and examples of things to try to show up the answers to these questions and concepts. So let's take a look and talk about what I foresee changing. And if you guys have any ideas or input on what you'd like to see, maybe I've just been missing the ball on what you used to enjoy about this channel. Or maybe I'm already doing stuff you like and you don't want to see it go away. Either way, I'd really like to see what you have to say about my plan. So let's jump in. All right, so first of all, we have the big old aquarium in the living room, obviously. And the substrate here, 8 years old. It's exactly as old, wow, that's some bad glare this time of day. It's exactly as old as the channel itself. Basically, within 6 months of starting the channel, I got this beauty of an aquarium, set it up, and I've added aqua soil to it, about an inch of it, twice. Now we're into, 6 inches of substrate easily with the mulm and the moss. And even around the side here, you can see in some cases we're getting higher than that, like maybe 8 inches. And the other thing is, up top, a lot of the plants are growing into this thick mat. And while this thick mat, I've shown the benefits, I've shown all the cool stuff, and literally this is the trickle that is my canister filter. And I've let this happen just to see what happens, as I've done over the years with all my nature aquariums. But what happens is you get a lot of algae growth because of the high intensity light. Now we're also getting the Bacopa is flowering here, which is great. So if we get Bacopa flowering in the other room, we can start doing crosses again. That's fun. The Ludwigia is immersed. The Hydrocaudal is flowering, and that's already been crossed. This Anubias has already been crossed. Now my new kitty cat, who is over here, say hello, Sumi. Hi, Sumi. Of course, she doesn't want to do anything on command. She has broken most of my tall plants. I've actually had to move them over here as well. But long story short, I'm not inspired by this anymore. There's some cool stuff going on in here still. I'm still learning from it, but this whole like Jackson Pollock scene of Substrate actually turns into kind of a dark monoculture after a while. And soon you start seeing the same thing. Your aquatic floating plants start kind of taking over, and you get all sorts of little water mites and little aphids and springtails taking over on that. And while, yes, like killifish and fish from brackish or bog water seem to kind of love that environment, this tank is also even older than the other one. And again, we started with a lot of substrate here, but again, it's just growing and growing and growing, and soon we're going to run out of room for fish. That you can't see the aquascape. And as much as it's great for, you know, growing lots of guppies and doing that whole thing, it's not relaxing for me to look at as much. I mean, I do like looking at some of the guppies, and I'm working on this breeding project and so on and so forth. But there's a whole lot of fish I can't keep in here due to space and just due to, you know, how much substrate is built up and the balance that is needed to succeed. And, you know, I just went to an auction at my local fish club, and I got these great crypts, and I realized, where am I going to put them? I've got all these bags of crypts. They're awesome, rare crypts. They're not going to have enough nutrients to succeed in this substrate with all this, you know, with the fungi and the mulm and all that right now. The plants that are already in there have acclimated to it, but also we've got algae going on and stuff like that. It's time to reset it. It really is. So, you know, even when we look in the other room and we head into the other room, I want to show you guys, I've started this process, and I started outside by scrubbing aquariums. I've been already, you know, scrubbing the glass and using a razor blade and some vinegar to just clean out all of that. And we have a lot of spots to put stuff in the fish room. But what am I going to do? And there's an extra slot there. There's room here. There's room here. I took out the tank that used to be back there. There's no more extra breeding tank back there. There's no tanks back here or here. And so we're just left with the front row. The crab, I gave him away, so now we can free this up. This is another tank that's older than the other two. This is probably my oldest substrate short of this one here. But it's nothing inspiring. It's algae on a rock. And while I'm sure there are fascinating processes going on, and these little checkerboard cichlids are really cool to watch, and they're having a blast, and they're eating little critters in the moss, and they're fine, I'm just not excited. And same with like these natural style gouramis. This is what they look like before humans selectively bred them. And the male right here, he's in spawning mode, but normally he is a really plain color. And so it's things like this that I want to show you. Like here's the other male in the tank. He's pretty boring if we can get a shot of him without the algae there. He's pretty boring compared to that top dog male who's all colored up. But now they've got it so you see all that color all year round, and the males and the females have it. But I kind of like it being a special treat that turns on once in a while, just, you know, when the conditions are right. Same with this tank. You know, this tank I've been doing gravel backing on, and so it's a version of shallow substrate, just gravel, and it's mulm that's built up over the years again, but it's only growing floating plants, guppy grass, hornwort, lilies, stuff like that. And when I look around, I see that all my betta tanks, my shrimp tanks, my wild shrimp tanks, my live culture tanks, they all look the same, and I'm just sick of it. Even though, yes, it's producing all these little live critters for food, and that's great. And some of the fish are really stoked on that, like these apistos and these rainbow fish, or, for instance, the goodeids. Here's another tank. This has been set up since the channel has been around too, 8 years. And look at this algae. There's Claudophora algae that takes up half the freaking tank, and I keep having to battle it, and I'm tired of it. Here we've got some filterless tanks. I think I'm going to leave these. This one should probably be fine. This one, again though, it's looking like everything else. And while I have an experiment going to see how hard of water I can keep chili rasboras in, this being 8.1 or 8.2 pH water, and them still being healthy and happy, it's been a gradual project. I would like to do something else, like have a hill stream tank, or be having an extra tank for growing out the bettas or gouramis or these wild Maha chiensis. But I haven't even felt compelled to be cleaning. I haven't felt up to it, honestly, to get in between the tanks and to really clean some of the things that I've neglected. in here. And the other thing is, I know a lot of you know about, I was in the hospital, but also this summer we replaced the roof because it had been leaking. So we have 5 spots around the house that are not leaking anymore, but this whole sheetrock needs to be redone all along the edge of the house, all 4 corners of the entire house. We got to redo the inside. And in this room, the humidity is just not helping anything. But before I start a new tank, I need to either shut down 1 or 2 tanks. Hey, there's a kitty right there. Or something like that. Here's another tank that is about 3 years old, and this used to be carpeted, and now that carpet has all but kind of died out because we've been on low light for a year. Can't believe it's been actually 14 or 15 months now, and I'm trying to plant some new crypts in here and seeing what will happen. It doesn't make sense which fish are even in here. I've got lights that I need to rewire and, bags of aqua soil and things. So there's all this stuff. And I'm just not happy with the way the aquarium room or the fish room looks right now. I mean, I've got all of the wires exposed because my air pumps stopped working on the few tanks that do run on air. But there's actually air lines running to just about every tank, and they're just not turned on. They've been turned off for a long time in most tanks. And then there's a hang off the back on that tank, and then there's air pumps on 2 tanks. Why do I have all this crap still in here if there's not even filters running? So while I feel proud of what I've achieved and kept alive and how these tanks are dynamic and interesting in their own right, and a lot of people have been kind of interested in checking them out and how they kind of work as an ecosystem, the truth is we are never going to fully realize a nature aquarium in our tanks. The bottom line is, if you want a nature aquarium, you're not going to get it in an aquarium in a house. We are fooling ourselves if we think that our, low maintenance nature style aquariums are a one-to-one image of nature. They certainly are not. They don't have all of the flood, area. They don't have all of the bedrock or all of the substrate, and they don't have all of the drainage field and, basins and river systems that a natural lake or pond or river would have. And we cannot replicate that unless we literally built all around the aquarium with soil and aqua soil or something, and really restructured our whole system or built a sump system 10 times bigger than the aquarium at a minimum, just to kind of show how the system works. Because we're adding to our aquariums, but at the end of the day, we're not taking enough out of our aquariums if we're being completely hands-off about that kind of maintenance. We're not doing water changes, we're not doing filtration kind of stuff. If we're kind of trying to do these, most hands-off tank as possible and see what you can recreate from nature, you get substrate that slowly builds up over the years. And it kind of breaks your heart to undo what you've watched, the little clockwork of the natural system you put into place with the knowledge you had at the time, trying to recreate a natural system. Undoing that is hard. It's like saying goodbye to a person or a pet, in itself. Just the whole system overview rather than even just any one fish, which, I'll save all the fish. Don't worry about that. They're not going to get tossed or anything. But it's just not realistic to think that this is emulating anything anymore. From this point forward, really what I'm doing is just easing it along with root tabs or liquid fertilizers and removing water or aqua soil here and there, or filling up the aqua soil until there's no room at all. And I don't want to do that. That's not teaching you guys anything or me anything. And it's something that I think we've seen it. 10 years is a pretty good slice of time to have witnessed it. So let's start a new chapter. Let's do a little bit of aquascaping, a little bit of breeding, and a little bit of resetting some nature tanks yet again, because I still really do enjoy them. But I think that's where we're at. Through it all, though, I really do appreciate your support, your thoughts, your input, and your questions, your concerns, and the things that you guys teach me. It means so much to me. You guys have allowed me to do this. I will slowly start the process now of redoing all of this. Thanks to the American tax write-off system, hopefully I can get some of the money back from what we're doing as we embark on refreshing our learning together yet again. Thanks for watching, you guys. And of course, I will see you soon. Bye.